The silence in the penthouse was a living thing. It breathed with the hum of the central air, pulsed with the distant, muted sounds of the city far below. It was a silence you'd grown accustomed to over the past year, a heavy, expensive silence that belonged entirely to Jungkook. He was a man carved from ice and shadow, his presence a physical weight in any room. As the undisputed king of Seoul's underworld, his word was law, his anger a death sentence, and you were his wife, on paper at least. The contract was stark in your memory. 1 year, a business arrangement. Your presence on his arm lent him an air of legitimacy. His financial support erased your family's crippling debts. Strictly physical, the clause had stated. A cold, clinical term for the nights he spent in your bed. Intense, passionate, but always followed by a retreat back behind his impenetrable walls. He never kissed you on the mouth. He never held you after. And your heart, the foolish traitor, had gone and fallen in love with him anyway. It happened in the quiet moments, the way he'd watch you from across the room, his dark eyes unreadable but intense, as if he were memorizing you. The single time you'd had a cold, and he'd gruffly left a cup of ginger tea on your bedside table without a word. The way his knuckles would sometimes, almost absently, brush against yours, sending a jolt of lightning up your arm. You'd started to see ghosts of something more, building castles of hope out of his silence. But the contract was ending. In 1 week, Jungkook, you'd begun last night, your voice trembling as he poured himself a glass of amber whiskey. We need to talk about the divorce. The papers. He'd frozen for a fraction of a second, his back to you. Then he'd drained the glass in one swift motion. Not now, he'd rasped, his voice like gravel, and walked out of the room. The sound of the study door closing, firm and final, was the sound of your heart cracking. He can't even look at me, you thought. The pain a sharp, cold stone in your chest. The thought of being free of me is such a relief that he can't bear to discuss it. That was the moment the hope finally died. Now you stood in the bedroom you'd shared, folding a sweater he'd bought you in Milan. Your suitcase lay open on the bed, a gaping mouth ready to swallow the remnants of your failed fantasy. Every item you packed was a memory, a scarf from Paris, a book from London, the lingering scent of his cologne on a discarded shirt. You were packing up the evidence of your own heartbreak. His POV. She's packing. From the doorway, hidden by shadows, Jungkook watched you. Every movement of your hands was a twist of the knife in his gut. He saw you lift the jade silk blouse, the one he told you looked like your eyes, and hold it for a moment, your shoulders slumping. Don't, he screamed inside the silent prison of his mind. Put it down. Stay. But his feet were rooted to the marble floor. His tongue, so skilled at issuing commands that could end lives, was useless. How could he form words for this? How could he explain the terror that seized him every time she mentioned leaving? The mere word divorce felt like a bullet aimed directly at his soul. He remembered the first night she'd slept in this bed, curled away from him, her breathing soft and uncertain. He'd stayed awake the entire night, watching the moonlight trace the curve of her cheek, convincing himself she was real, that she was his. He'd fought a war in the shadows to keep her safe, eliminating a rival faction that had dared to look her way. He'd built a fortress around her, only to realize the greatest threat to her was the very darkness he embodied, the darkness that was now pushing her away. And he let her believe it because it was safer, because if his enemies knew the truth, they would tear her apart to get to him. His coldness was her armor, his silence her protection, but it had become her prison. You zipped the suitcase closed. The sound was final, like a guillotine dropping. You took a deep, shaky breath, squaring your shoulders. You could do this. You could walk away from the man who held your heart in his frozen hands and didn't seem to know it was there. You wheeled the suitcase to the foyer, the wheels a loud, obnoxious rumble in the sacred silence. You reached for the handle of the massive, ornate front door. "Where do you think you're going?" His voice was low, but it vibrated through the air, charged with a dangerous, unfamiliar energy. You flinched, your hand falling from the handle. You turned slowly. Jungkook stood at the edge of the living room, his posture rigid. His fists were clenched at his sides, the knuckles white. The usual icy calm was gone from his face, replaced by something raw, something desperate. "The contract is almost up," you said, your voice surprisingly steady. "I'm leaving. You don't have to avoid the conversation anymore." "No." The word was a gunshot. "No?" A bitter laugh escaped you. "What do you mean, no? You've spent a year showing me in every way possible that this is just a business deal, that I mean nothing to you. Well, the deal is over, Jungkook. I'm setting you free." His control shattered. "Free?" He took a step forward, his eyes blazing. "You think I want to be free of you? What else am I supposed to think?" You cried, the dam of your composure breaking. "You never touch me unless it's in the dark. You never say my name like you mean it. You walk away every time I try to talk to you. You've made it perfectly clear that you feel nothing for me." "Feel nothing?" He was in front of you now, his body radiating a frantic heat. He grabbed your wrists, not to hurt you, but to anchor you, to anchor himself. "You think I feel nothing?" He brought your hand to his chest, pressing your palm flat against the hard plane. His heart was hammering against his ribs, a wild, frantic rhythm. "Do you feel that?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "That is what happens every time you walk into the room, every time you smile, every time you say my name. It feels like I'm going to die." You stared at him, stunned. The Ice King was melting before your eyes, and the torrent beneath was terrifying. You stammered. "You never said, you never showed me." "Because I am a monster. YN," he roared, his grip tightening. "My world is blood and vengeance. It is not a place for someone like you. My love isn't gentle. It's not pretty words and flowers. It's watching you sleep every night to make sure you're still breathing. It's tearing apart anyone who even thinks of looking at you wrong. It's a fucking curse